Hello and welcome to Freedom Watch, your daily dose of raw liberty online at foxnews.com/freedomwatch. I'm Judge Andrew Napolitano here, defending freedom, defending your natural rights, and defending your right to have a government that stays within the confines of the Constitution. I believe we have a one-party system in this country called the Big Government Party. There is a Republican branch that likes war and deficits and assaulting civil liberties. There is a Democratic branch that likes welfare and taxes and assaulting commercial liberties. When you look around at all the anti-government rallies, from the Tea Parties to the 9/12 events to the various town halls, the obvious message is people are fed up. They're fed up with big government lawmakers expanding their own powers at the expense of individual freedoms and liberties and the sovereignty of the 50 states. These times are almost reminiscent of the turbulent 1960s. I was there. I witnessed firsthand the backlash against the government. And I will tell you, this is the same thing happening again today. The voice of the people is being overlooked and marginalized by politicians in D.C., and Americans are fighting back. Will a third party or will civil unrest emerge from all this turmoil? What will Washington do when California goes bankrupt and comes calling? What will the taxpayers in the remaining 49 states do? Joining me now is Gerald Celente, the director of the Trends Research Institute and one of the world's most regarded trends forecasters. Jerry, always a pleasure, my friend. Welcome back to Freedom Watch.
Thank you, Judge. Great being on.
So what will happen if California or New Jersey go bankrupt and a Governor Meg Whitman a year from now or Governor Chris Christie go to the president saying, give me 25 or 30 billion. Otherwise, I can't run police departments. I can't operate bridges. I'll have to shut down highways and schools.
It's already happening. But let's look at the number beyond that. When you put all the states together, the budget shortfalls are approaching $200 billion. And then there's all those pensions that they'll never pay, they can never meet. The collapse is underway. And I was there in the 60s as well. And I would say that what's going on now is even greater than what happened in the 60s. Because in the 60s, a lot of it was motivated by guys getting drafted that didn't want to go.
Exactly. It was motivated by young people who simply didn't want to go to the war.
Right.
Put aside the fact that the draft is unconstitutional and the war was illegal and it was based on a trick perpetrated on us by Lyndon Johnson. The resistance in the 60s was young people. The resistance today is young people, but it's also suburbanites. It's also middle America. It's also the backbone of this country. It's basically saying to the federal government, enough is enough.
That's right. You don't have construction workers now throwing bricks on marches. They're the marchers. This is much bigger, Judge. We've said this over and over again. The Second American Revolution has begun. Let's look a couple of days forward, and let's see what happens on April 15th. Let's look at the tax protests and Tea Parties that are going to spring up across the nation. And you hit it on the nose. They're downplaying this. This is really big. And the mainstream media and the entrenched politicians, I call them the red carpet crowd. You know, everywhere they go in these jumbo jets that are big enough to move a whole city. And every time they arrive somewhere, they have to roll out the red carpet. They're totally detached of the anger, the seething, and the revolt going on in this country. We're looking for the third party to emerge in 2012, and it won't be the Tea Party. It'll be bigger.
All right. I want to look at the two extremes of the country, geographic extremes, and I mentioned both of them. In California, the government lacks the ability to operate from day to day without deferring payments, laying people off, or using IOUs. In New Jersey, at least the government can operate. But New Jersey has 7.5 million people and 800,000 receiving a public pension of some sort or another. The governor has said, we simply will not be able to be making these payments a year or two from now. Question. What happens when the pension checks stop coming from Trenton? And what happens when Sacramento sends out worthless IOUs instead of checks that can be cashed or deposited in a bank account?
It's the beginning of the greatest depression. And this is only going to be one of the symptoms. and it's going to be nationwide. The banks are going to continue to fail. You know what's going on. They just propped them up with what? $11 trillion worth of money that's been guaranteed, spent, or lent. And it's going to run out. We're heading toward the Greatest Depression.
Now,
there's going to be civil unrest.
My friends that work here at Fox on the Fox Business Network are elated at where the stock market is going. And this morning with one of them, I got into a heated argument that this is just another bubble. Yes, the stock market's been going up for 5 consecutive days. We just had a 3-day weekend because of Good Friday. But this is nothing for you to rejoice about. This can't be sustained. It's an artificial increase, and it's going to crash again. Am I right, or are they?
You're right. And this is what happened when the last bubble was blown up and nobody wanted to hear it. When people are making money, they don't want to hear anything bad. Look, it's the bailout bubble. First it was the dot-com bubble, then the real estate credit crisis bubble. This is the bailout bubble. And what we're saying, and remember, Judge, all things are connected, or as Chief Seattle said, all things are connected, like the blood which unites us all. The next bubble, after this burst, and they can't fix it, it's going to be the war. They're going to take us to war. They're already rattling the sabers again against Iran.
What will happen if the Chinese stop loaning us money, or if they demand an interest rate far beyond what the federal government wants to pay, or if they demand security on something like, you and I have kidded around about this, but I think that's going to actually happen, Yellowstone National Park, or something in Utah where the federal government owns 80% of the land.
See, China's in a catch-22. They have to keep loaning us money, so we keep buying their crap. And they're stuck. They can't bail out of bucks because they have to keep this scheme going. They're really in a fix as well. And by the way, they're also holding on to those euros. And, you know, jumping out of the euro and jumping into the dollar is like bailing out of the Titanic and going into the Lusitania. So they're in a lot of trouble. There's no way out for them. And by the way, they're stimulating world growth as well. That's why this whole economy continues to move forward. They've put it way over $1 trillion. Europe, trillions. Every country in the world, India, Japan, is continuing to stimulate. The stimulus is going to run out. The crash is going to happen.
Before we go, I know your field is the economy, but any predictions for 2012, who the candidates might be or what the likely outcome will be?
You know, we're looking for a new candidate. We're calling it the Internet candidate, a lack of a better term. The people are fed up. You hit it on the head. It's a two-headed, one-party system. We're going to see something come out of the shadows. And it's not going to be about the personality, not a presidential reality show, but actually a candidate built on real platforms and principles.
Gerald Celente, it's always a pleasure. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Judge.